Two men, same woman, same situation. The first man is 27. Smart guy. Good looking, works hard. The moment he meets her, he's already thinking about her constantly. He texts her good morning within the first 2 days. He clears his schedule when she's available. He checks his phone every 20 minutes, waiting for her reply. When she seems distant, he tries harder. When she pulls back, he leans in more. He tells his friends about her after the third date. He's already imagining where this could go. She loses interest by week 3. The second man is 41. No better looking, not significantly richer. Does not run any game, does not play any strategy. He meets her, has a genuinely good conversation, and goes back to his life. He texts when he feels like it. He sees her when it fits his schedule. He's warm, but not available on demand. He's interested, but clearly not desperate. He has opinions. He has plans that do not involve her. He is going somewhere, and she can either come along or not. She's thinking about him 3 weeks later, wondering why he has not asked her out again yet. Same woman, completely different outcomes. And the difference had nothing to do with looks, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with some secret technique or psychological trick. The difference was that one man was chasing and one man was not. Now, here is the question this entire video is going to answer, and I need you to stay until the end, because the answer is not what most men expect. What does the older man actually do instead of chasing? Because not chasing is not the same as doing nothing. It's not playing hard to get. It is not pretending to be unavailable. It is something far more powerful, far more sustainable, and far more attractive than anything the pickup artist world ever came up with. That is what we are breaking down today step by step. This is exactly what we do here. No games, no manipulation, just the real psychology of what makes a man genuinely magnetic. Let's get into it. Let me introduce you to Marcus. Marcus is 38 years old, lives in Austin, Texas, project manager at a mid-sized tech firm, divorced once, no kids. By most measures, a genuinely good man, reliable, emotionally intelligent, financially stable. The kind of man who remembers what you told him 3 conversations ago and actually follows up. But between the ages of 22 and 35, Marcus was a chaser. Not in an obvious, desperate way. Not in a way his friends would have called out. In the quiet, invisible way that most men chase without ever realizing that is what they are doing. He was always the one who texted first. Always the one who suggested plans. Always the one who worked harder to keep the energy alive when it started to dip. Always the one who felt that low-grade anxiety when she did not respond quickly enough. Always the one wondering what he could do differently to make her more interested. And he got into relationships. He was not striking out completely, but every single relationship had the same invisible dynamic underneath it. He was working harder than she was. He was more invested than she was. He was more afraid of losing it than she was. And that imbalance, that quiet, desperate imbalance, always showed up eventually. Sometimes it took 6 months, sometimes 2 years, but it always showed up. And it always ended the same way. She lost respect first, then attraction, then she left. And Marcus would replay it all, wondering what went wrong. He was a good man. He showed up. He tried. He cared. Why did caring always seem to push them away? Here is what Marcus did not understand yet, and what most men never get told clearly. Chasing is not about the behavior on the surface. It is about the energy underneath the behavior. You can text a woman once a day and be chasing. You can see her twice a week and be chasing. You can be in a 3-year relationship and still be chasing. Because chasing is not a frequency of contact, it is a state of mind. Chasing means your emotional stability is tied to her response. It means her interest level determines your confidence level. It means you are constantly, consciously or not, performing for her approval, adjusting yourself, monitoring her reactions, managing her feelings, working to keep something alive that should be sustaining itself. And women feel that energy. They cannot always name it, but they feel it. And what it communicates underneath all the good intentions is scarcity. It communicates that you do not fully believe you're worth staying for without the effort. That if you stop working this hard, she will leave. And that belief, that quiet, desperate belief, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy every single time. Now, here is the part that should make every man sit up straight. Chasing is not a character flaw. It is a conditioned response. Men are taught by culture, by movies, by well-meaning but misguided advice, that effort equals value in relationships, that the man who tries hardest wins, that persistence is romantic, that if you care enough and show up enough and prove yourself enough, she will eventually see what you're worth. That conditioning is deeply embedded, and it is completely backwards. The men who stopped chasing did not stop caring. They stopped seeking. And that distinction, that single distinction that changed everything, including what happened to Marcus at 38. Marcus was 38 when it happened. Not a dramatic moment, not a rock bottom, not some cinematic breakdown where everything became clear in a single instant. It was quieter than that, more ordinary than that. And honestly, it's more devastating than that. He was sitting in his apartment in Austin on a Tuesday night, freshly divorced, 8 months out. The acute pain had passed. The anger had settled. The grief had done most of its work. And he was just sitting there quiet, looking at his phone, and he realized something that stopped him completely cold. He did not know what he actually wanted. Not from a woman, not from a relationship, from his own life, from his own days. He had spent so many years organizing his emotional world around other people, around her reactions, her moods, her needs, her level of interest, that he had completely lost track of his own internal compass. He did not know what made him genuinely happy outside of a relationship. He did not know what he stood for beyond being a good partner. He did not know who Marcus was when Marcus was not trying to be what someone else needed. And that realization, that quiet, devastating realization, was the beginning of everything changing. Because here is the truth about why older men stop chasing that almost nobody talks about. It is not strategy. It is not that they learned some advanced psychological technique for creating attraction. It is not that they figured out the perfect formula for seeming less available. It is that they went through enough to finally understand one fundamental thing. You cannot give someone a home inside you if you have not built one for yourself first. Every man who chases is at the core looking for something external to fill something internal. The validation, the feeling of being chosen, the relief of knowing someone wants you, the sense of identity that comes from being in a relationship. These are real human needs. There is nothing shameful about them. But when a relationship becomes the primary source of those things, when another person's interest becomes the foundation of your self-worth, you have handed someone an enormous amount of power over you. Power they did not ask for. Power that will eventually make them uncomfortable. Power that will, without fail, erode the very attraction you were working so hard to maintain. Marcus spent the next year doing something he had never seriously done before. He built a life he was genuinely proud of, not for anyone else, not to post about, not to make his ex-wife regret anything, for himself. He got serious about his health. He picked up the woodworking hobby he had abandoned at 24. He got a therapist. He started saying no to things that drained him and yes to things that genuinely lit him up. He got clear on what he valued, what he would tolerate, and what he absolutely would not. And somewhere in the middle of all that, without trying, without strategizing, without running any kind of game, he stopped being a man who needed to chase. He became a man worth finding. And the difference in how women responded to him was immediate. And it had nothing to do with what he was doing. It had everything to do with who he had become. All right, this is the segment most of you came here for. Not chasing is one thing, But what do older, emotionally mature men actually do instead? What does that look like in practice, in real conversations, real dates, real situations? Let me break it down into 4 specific things. 4 things Marcus started doing, not as techniques, but as natural expressions of who he had become. The first thing, they build instead of pursue. While younger men are focused outward, focused on her, on the dynamic, on what she is thinking, on how to keep her interested, older men are focused inward and forward. They are building a business, a body, a skill, a vision, a life that has genuine substance and direction. And this building is not performance. It is not for show. It is not the guy who posts his gym selfies and his business class flights to signal value. It is the man who is genuinely invested in his own trajectory. So genuinely invested that his attention and time feel like real currency, because they actually are. When Marcus started getting serious about his woodworking, started taking on small projects, building furniture, eventually selling a few pieces, he did not do it to seem interesting. He did it because it genuinely fulfilled something in him. But here is what happened. He had something real to talk about. He had passion that was authentic. He had a life that existed completely independently of whoever he was dating. And that independence, that genuine fullness, is magnetic in a way that no amount of calculated pursuit ever could be. The second thing, they filter instead of impress. This is a complete reversal of how most men approach dating. Most men walk into a date trying to impress, trying to present the best version of themselves, trying to make her like them. The entire energy is outward, aimed at winning her approval. Older men walk in curious. They're genuinely asking, is this person someone I want in my life? Do her values align with mine? Does she bring something real to the table? Is she kind? Is she emotionally stable? Does she make my life better or more complicated? Marcus told me. And this is the shift that changed everything for him. He stopped asking, does she like me? And started asking, do I like her? And the moment he made that switch, his entire presence in dating interactions changed. He became calmer, more direct, more genuinely himself, because he was not performing for a grade. He was conducting an honest evaluation, and women felt that immediately. A man who is evaluating you is fundamentally more attractive than a man who is auditioning for you. The third thing, they lead instead of following her emotional temperature. Younger men are emotionally reactive in relationships. When she is happy, they feel great. When she is distant, they feel anxious. When she is cold, they immediately try to fix it. Her emotional state becomes the weather system their entire day is lived inside. Older men set the temperature. They bring a consistent emotional energy that does not dramatically shift based on her mood. They are warm when warmth is appropriate. They are firm when firmness is necessary. They do not chase her emotional approval, and they do not collapse when it is temporarily withdrawn. This is not coldness. It is emotional leadership, and it is one of the most deeply attractive qualities a man can possess, because it communicates on a primal level that this man will be stable when life gets hard, that he will not fall apart, that he can be trusted with weight. The fourth, they communicate with clarity instead of performing. Older men say what they mean. They express interest directly without overdoing it. They communicate discomfort without making it a production. They do not hint. They do not test. They do not send messages designed to get a specific emotional reaction. Marcus went on a date 6 months into his rebuild. Woman named Jennifer. Smart, funny, genuinely attractive. 2 dates in, he could tell she was running a little hot and cold, testing his reactions, pulling back to see if he would chase. The old Marcus would have tried harder, would have sent a thoughtful follow-up message, would have suggested a more impressive third date, would have worked to close the distance she was creating. The new Marcus sent her a single text. Hey Jennifer, I've enjoyed our time. I get the sense you might be figuring out what you want. No pressure either way, but I'm not really a back and forth kind of guy. If you're interested, I'm here. If not, genuinely no hard feelings. She called him within the hour. Not because it was a tactic, because it was true, because it was clear, because it communicated without aggression, without neediness, without drama, that this man knew his own worth and was not available to be strung along. Clarity is not a technique. It is a character trait, and it is one that almost no younger man has fully developed yet. These four things together, building, filtering, leading, and communicating clearly, are not a dating strategy. They are the natural expression of a man who's done the inner work. And the next piece of this, the piece most men completely underestimate, is one of the most powerful tools in a mature man's arsenal: silence. Most men are terrified of silence. Not the silence in a conversation, although that makes them uncomfortable too. The silence in a dynamic, the gap between messages, the space between seeing each other, the quiet that opens up when a man stops filling every moment with effort and presence and reassurance. That silence feels dangerous to most men. It feels like losing ground. Feels like she might forget about you, like she might lose interest, like the connection might cool if you're not constantly stoking it. And so they fill it. They text good morning every day. They send the funny meme. They check in. They follow up. They make sure she knows they are thinking about her. They keep the fire going because they're terrified of what happens if they stop adding wood. And here is the brutal irony of all of that effort. The constant contact, the daily texts, the consistent check-ins, the never letting the conversation die, does not build attraction. It drains it, slowly, quietly, in a way she cannot always articulate, but absolutely feels. Because here is what that constant presence communicates underneath the surface. It communicates that you have nothing more important going on than maintaining her attention. It communicates that the connection is fragile, so fragile it cannot survive a day without reinforcement. And it communicates that your emotional state is dependent on the momentum of this thing staying alive. None of that is attractive. All of it is invisible to the man doing it. Marcus learned this the hard way. After his rebuild, he went on a run of dates that started going differently than anything he had experienced before. And one of the biggest shifts was almost embarrassingly simple. He stopped texting first, not as a rule, not as a game, but because he was genuinely busy, genuinely invested in his own days. And when he did text, it was because he actually had something to say, not because he was maintaining a connection out of anxiety. And what he noticed was striking. Women started reaching out more, started initiating more, started wondering what he was doing. The space he created, the silence he was comfortable sitting in, created something in them that constant contact never could: curiosity. There is a psychological principle at work here that is well documented. We assign more value to things that are not constantly available to us. Scarcity, real scarcity, not manufactured scarcity, creates desire. When a man's attention is abundant and automatic, it becomes invisible. When it is genuine and selective, it becomes something worth wanting. Older men understand this not because they studied it, but because they lived enough to stop needing to fill every silence with reassurance. They are comfortable in the quiet because the quiet does not threaten them. And that comfort, that stillness, is one of the most powerful things a man can project. But here is what makes it all sustainable. What keeps a mature man from ever sliding back into the chasing trap? His boundaries. And that is exactly where we are going next. Let's talk about boundaries, because this word gets thrown around constantly in self-development and relationship content, and most of the time it gets reduced to something soft, something therapeutic, something you say in a calm voice after reading a wellness blog. That is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about the kind of boundaries that older men carry in their bones. Not rules they recite, not lines they rehearse, but a deeply internalized sense of what they will and will not accept, and the complete absence of apology around that. Here is the difference between how a younger man and an older man handle the same situation. A woman cancels plans at the last minute, second time in 3 weeks. The younger man feels the frustration, but swallows it. He does not want to seem difficult, does not want to push her away, so he says, "No problem," suggests another time, and privately feels smaller for it. He tells himself he's being understanding. What he's actually doing is training her and himself that his time has no real cost. The older man responds differently, not with anger, not with a lecture, not with a passive-aggressive comment designed to make her feel guilty. He simply does not reschedule immediately. He says something like, "No worries, I'll catch you when things are less hectic on your end." And then he goes and does something else with his evening. Something genuinely enjoyable, because his night was not ruined, his value was not diminished, his mood was not determined by her flakiness. And that response, that calm, unbothered response, communicates more about his self-worth than anything he could have said directly. Marcus had a situation about a year into his post-divorce dating life that crystallized this for him completely. He was seeing a woman named Rachel, smart, successful, genuinely interesting woman. But Rachel had a habit. Whenever she felt Marcus pulling slightly back, whenever he was busy or less communicative, she would create drama. A misread text, an accusation that he was being distant, a sudden emotional temperature drop designed to pull him back in. The old Marcus would have rushed to fix it, would have over-explained, would have apologized for things that did not require apology, just to restore the peace. The new Marcus did something different. He sat Rachel down and said calmly, directly, without worry, "I care about what we are building here, but I am not going to manage your anxiety for you. When something is wrong, tell me directly, and I will show up for that conversation completely. But I am not going to chase an emotional reaction. That is not something I do anymore." Rachel was silent for a long moment. And then she said, "Nobody has ever talked to me like that before." Not because it was harsh, because it was honest, because it came from a man who knew exactly where his line was and crossed it for no one. That is not a wall. A wall keeps everything out, including the good. A boundary is a standard. It says, "I am open. I am warm. I'm genuinely here. But here is what I will not accept. And I'm telling you that not to control you, but because you deserve to know who you are dealing with." Younger men confuse being boundless with being loving. They think accommodating everything makes them a good partner. What it actually makes them is invisible. And the moment a man becomes invisible in a relationship, the relationship is already ending. She just has not told him yet. Here's the part that sounds like a cliche until you actually live it. The most attractive version of a man is not the version that is trying to be attractive. It is the version that has completely stopped thinking about being attractive because he's too busy being genuinely alive. This is the thing about Marcus at 38 versus Marcus at 27 that cannot be faked, cannot be shortcut, and cannot be learned from a YouTube video alone. It has to be lived. It has to be earned through the actual experience of building something real inside yourself. At 27, Marcus walked into every interaction with a woman carrying an invisible question. Does she like me? Every conversation, every date, every text exchange was filtered through that question. And that filter, that constant self-monitoring, made him slightly less present in every single moment, slightly less himself, slightly more performance than person. At 38, Marcus walks into interactions carrying something completely different: genuine curiosity about the other person, genuine comfort in his own skin, genuine indifference to the outcome. Not performed indifference, not strategic aloofness, but the real thing that comes from knowing your life is full and good with or without this particular person in it. And that energy, that presence, is felt immediately by everyone around him. Not just women, everyone. Colleagues, friends, strangers in a conversation at a bar. There is something about a man who's fully inhabiting his own life that draws people in without any effort on his part. Psychologists call this presence, but it is more than just being in the moment. It is the product of alignment. When what you think, what you say, and what you do are all pointing in the same direction, When you're not performing one version of yourself while privately being another, people feel that alignment is something magnetic and rare, because it is rare. Most people are performing constantly. Most people are managing impressions, curating reactions, presenting a version of themselves they believe will be accepted. And we are all so used to that performance that when we encounter someone who is simply and completely themselves, it stops us. Marcus does not post his life for validation. He lives it for satisfaction. He does not talk about his goals to impress. He pursues them because they matter to him. He does not dress well to be noticed. He takes care of himself because he respects himself. And women notice, not because he's doing anything designed to make them notice, but because a man in full alignment with himself is one of the rarest and most compelling things in the modern world. You cannot manufacture that. You can only become it. And the way you become it is not by learning better dating strategies. It is by answering one question with complete honesty. Who are you when nobody is watching and nobody is evaluating you? Because that man, that real, unperformed, fully inhabited man, is the most attractive version of you that will ever exist. The only question is whether you are willing to do the work to meet him. Let me tell you where Marcus is today. He is 41, still in Austin, still doing project management, but now running his own small firm. The woodworking turned into a legitimate side business. Custom furniture, mostly referrals, more orders than he can fill. He's in the best physical shape of his life. He has a small circle of genuinely close friends. He travels twice a year to places he actually wants to see. And he is in a relationship, a real one, with a woman named Claire, who pursued him genuinely, clearly without games, after they met at a friend's dinner party. He did not chase, and he did not perform. He did not strategize. He showed up as himself. And she recognized something in him that she had not found in years of dating younger men who were trying too hard to be impressive. She recognized a man who did not need her to complete him. And paradoxically, that made her want to be with him more than anyone she had ever met. Now, here is the final truth this entire video has been building toward. Older men do not stop chasing because they learned a better technique. They stop chasing because they finally answered the question that chasing was always trying to answer. Am I enough? Every man who chases is, underneath it all, trying to get external confirmation of something he has not yet confirmed internally. He chases because he needs her to choose him in order to believe he is worth choosing. He pursues because the pursuit feels like proof of his own value. The older man has answered that question through lived experience, through building, through failing and rebuilding, through grief and growth and genuine self-discovery. He knows he is enough, not because someone told him so, but because he has evidence. He built the evidence himself, day by day, decision by decision. And from that safe place, that solid, unshakable, internally anchored place, he does not chase. He simply lives, fully, purposefully, without apology, without performance. And the right people find their way to that life, because genuine light does not need to advertise itself. It just shines. Here is what I want every man watching this to take away today. You do not need to be older to stop chasing. You need to be honest. Honest about what the chasing is really about. Honest about what you have been outsourcing to other people's approval. Honest about the work that needs to happen inside before the outside changes. Start that work today, not tomorrow, not after the next relationship. Today, because every day you spend chasing is a day you are not building. And what you build, who you become, is the only thing that creates the kind of attraction that actually lasts. Stop chasing. Start becoming. That's the whole message. That is everything. If this story changed the way you look at the dynamics of attraction and self-worth, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the psychological truths that have been hidden in plain sight. Build your future. The next breakthrough is coming.